they sleep at all.
If they sleep at all, James, is a conversation we want to have this morning, and of course a big one for new parents. Sleeping patterns of babies are huge, and as well as those that anticipating to be new parents. It's something you need to be thinking about already as you await the birth of the boy or the girl. And joining me in studio is Inem and Sima, who's brand manager at Pampers. Thank you for joining us this morning. And let's begin with Jim's question. Well, babies do sleep, but their sleep patterns, usually at the beginning, quite unpredictable, erratic. Talk to us about that.
Newborn babies sleep between 16 to 20 hours in a day, strangely. But the only thing is they don't sleep at a stretch. So they sleep between 1 to 2 hours at short intervals, which make it difficult for the mom to catch a long sleep also, because they have to wake up all the time to feed. But they do sleep 16 to 20 hours in a day.
Okay, so a long time they sleep, but it's interrupted.
Yes.
So for how long will they be up for? You said they'll sleep for about an hour and a half, then we'll be up for about how long before they sleep again?
It depends, because if they need to sleep 20 hours in a day, the total time they are awake is about 4 hours. So they might be awake for 30 minutes to 1 hour, which is the timing they use to feed, and then they go back to sleep.
Okay, yes. But sleep is important. When a baby is born, they need to sleep. So if they're not sleeping those many hours, there's a problem, right?
Yes, sleep is very important for babies' development, because it affects not only the cognitive development, but also the physical development of the baby. A baby that doesn't sleep well would have issues growing up, because they wake up and they're not well rested, they're not able to adjust to the day, and then they would not grow and develop as they should.
Okay, and you talked about sleeping well. What would you describe as sleeping well for a baby? Because for many parents, especially first-time parents, it's quite a new experience for them, and so it's all about trying to figure things out. So what is sleeping well for a baby?
Sleeping well for a baby is the fact that the baby needs to be able to, there are different levels of sleep, or different, you have the deep sleep, the REM sleep and everything, but the baby needs to be able to go through all those different patterns of sleep. Depending on the baby, they have different ways they sleep. It doesn't matter how the baby sleeps. The important thing is that through the night, most especially, the baby is able to sleep all through the night when they get to that stage that they sleep through the night. And anything that makes that sleep uncomfortable or interrupts them would not allow them to develop well. Okay,
and you said sleep through the night. Majority of the parents are up all night. Some babies will sleep during the day. What's going on in such a situation?
When the baby is very young, they don't really understand the difference between day and night sleep. But as they get into 6 months, 9 months, they now understand. They don't really understand it, but the body naturally makes them to sleep more during the night. So that's when the parents can really watch out that the baby is sleeping all through the night.
Okay. So you've talked to us about the connection between a baby is sleeping and the baby's well-being, saying that it's very important. But in terms of changing patterns, because I have heard of parents who have their babies sleep a lot during the day, at night when now mommy and daddy also want to sleep, the baby cannot sleep. If there are patterns that are affecting the parent's well-being as well, because the parent has to also be well and okay to take care of the baby, how do you adjust that?
The important thing is to get the baby to understand a routine. So it's very important to set a nighttime routine for the baby. So different parents have different things they do. Towards the evening, you could decide to feed the baby close to when you want the baby to sleep, give the baby a shower, dim the lights in the room, and make the baby to understand that this is when everybody sleeps. And so different things work for different parents, but it's important that you set a sleeping routine for the baby.
So the routine will come from also how engaging you keep the baby, the time you're feeding them, as you said, the dimming of the lights. So it's the little things you do that will be indicators to baby that it's sleeping time, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And there's also, of course, the question of the babies that will have trouble sleeping. When it's too interrupted, there could also be an issue, especially crying too much, unable to sleep. What are some of the things that parents should know that indicates?
Okay, I think the things that affect baby sleep, one of them that we really know about is wetness. If the baby has eaten properly before going to bed, that means their tummy is full, they should be fine. But one major cause of discomfort that interrupts baby sleep is when they are wet. So it is very important that parents choose highly absorbent diapers that are able to absorb the urine in the night, because diapers have to work extra hard in the night to be able to keep the babies dry, because the babies would pee maybe 50% more urine in the night than they would do in the daytime. So it's important that the mother or the parent has highly absorbent diapers like pampers to keep the baby dry all through the night.
Okay, so talk to us through pampers. So how does this work? How long should the baby stay with it? Do you check to see if whether it's okay or it needs change?
Pampers has been designed to keep the baby dry up to 12 hours at night.
And that's irrespective of how often they are wetting the diapers?
Yes.
Okay.
So research that we've done with mothers and with babies, and through years or decades of research and innovation, has shown us that the diaper is able to keep the baby dry up to 12 hours in the night. So we've designed it such a way that no matter the amount of urine the baby passes through the night, the diaper can take that volume and allow the baby to have an uninterrupted sleep all through the night. So we also work with the Kenya Pediatric Association and the Kenya Pediatric Nurses Association to train mothers or to educate them on how to better care for their babies and how to ensure that the babies have good night's sleep.
Okay. And what is baby language like? Because I imagine this is a human being that's very little, cannot talk, but of course has needs, and would want possibly to communicate several things, but cannot. So how does a mother, and when you're talking to them, how do you teach them to learn to be able to figure out what is happening with the baby at every particular time?
I think mothers have been blessed with intuition to understand what's going with the baby, and babies seem to cry differently depending on what they want. I have a son myself, he's almost 2. When he's hungry, his cry is different from when he's wet, or when he wants you to attend to him, or when he wants to play. The cries are different. So mothers have intuition that are able to detect this, but also in training mothers or in educating them on how to care for babies, the pediatrics are in a better place to say, okay, this is exactly what your baby might want, and these are the examples or the signs you need to watch out for that might be signaling what a baby wants at that time. And the pediatric nurses are very good with this.
And in as far as back to the sleeping is concerned, we find some parents will hold the baby to sleep and maybe then fall asleep on perhaps their chest, and then they'll put the baby back on their bed and they'll wake up. So how to handle that? Because then some find themselves, when the baby is sleeping, they're being held, because now they get used to that very comfortable body contact with the parents, and when they're put down, it's not comfortable for them.
Yeah, I think babies are very unique, and different babies have different things. I've heard of very funny things moms or parents have to do to get their babies to sleep.
Yeah.
For instance, one mom says that the baby associates snoring with sleep because the father snores. So if she wants the baby to sleep, she snores like because this is snoring time, and the baby sleeps off thinking, okay, this is sleeping time. So it depends. Babies are very unique. One way that some mothers have figured out how to do the transition from holding the baby to keeping them on the bed is to keep something comforting near the baby that is taken off. So they move the baby to the bed with something comforting, and then they take it off, and the baby still thinks that the mother's body is close to them.
Okay. And what are the other funny methods that you've perhaps had that mothers engage? Because that's very interesting. Snoring so the baby can be like sleep time.
Other ones, and most moms say, is driving. Babies love to be in the car, so some parents would put on their pajamas and take the babies in the car and they start driving around, and the baby falls asleep just driving. Some babies would sleep to any beat, so if they hear music or a comforting music, they feel this is sleep time, and they would sleep if they hear music. Some just like vibration. I know a mother that keeps the baby close to the washing machine, and the little vibration rocks the baby to sleep. So babies are really interesting, and they have different things.
They have different things. So it's about training the baby, looking for that which works for them, and then learning it, figuring that out, and sticking with the program. Then, of course, there's baby proofing. And in terms of when a baby is sleeping, for some they have huge spaces to sleep, and then they could turn, and even there's a question, an issue of suffocating, if there's pillow or blankets and all. So what is where the baby is sleeping? What should and should not be there, and what must be kept in mind and be very careful about?
First, when the baby is very young, the pediatrics will advise you to keep the baby on their back and not to face them down, because they've not figured out how to turn. They don't know how to get their airwaves to be open. So it's very important to keep the baby on their back, and it's very important that in the cots there are no toys that the baby could roll over and then get their nose blocked or stuff. The cots need to be clear so that the babies can sleep properly. And even when you're using blankets, you have to cover the blankets in such a way that if the baby turns, they don't turn the blanket on themselves or cover their faces with a blanket, because they are too young to know how to take the blankets off. So it's very important as a mom to be sure that the environment for the baby is very safe.
It's very safe. And how often should you be checking on the baby when they're sleeping? Because some mothers will go start doing the other things and forget about baby.
If it's in the night and the baby is has a good diaper on and is going to sleep through the night, you don't need to check the baby all the time. Or when they do cry out or when they are awake, you are going to know. So you don't have to keep checking the baby. But before you go to bed yourself, it's important to just check that the baby is still sleeping well, and then there is no sign of danger, and then you can go to sleep.
And immediately after giving birth, you're out of the hospital, you're back home. Is it best to start at that point to train baby to sleep alone, or do you bring them to your bed? And if so, for how long do they stay in the bed, your bed?
Most people would advise that you keep the babies in their own cots, especially for first-time mothers who don't. Some mothers could turn and their body would go on the baby. Yeah, it could happen if you're very tired or if you're very stressed. So you're advised to keep the baby in their own cot or in a bed. If you're going to have to stay on the same bed with the baby, then you need to have ample space so that the baby, your body doesn't press the baby if you're not aware that you have a new baby, and you have to be much more careful how you sleep.
Yeah, that would be scary. But for those who begin off with their babies in bed, after how long should they perhaps take them back now to their own cots for that independence? Because then again, this baby is used to having somebody next to them, and then all of a sudden they might now start developing disturbed sleep because the environment is a little bit different.
For most moms, they keep the baby in the first 3 months because of feeding, because the babies keep feeding all the time. They don't want to get up, go to the bed and bring them back in. But I think after 3 months, it's okay to take the baby back into their own cots.
Into their own cots. And this is a conversation that's important not only for the moms, but also when they have house helps, people that are helping them. Because especially for the working moms, after the 3 months and they have to go back to work, then the babies are left with caretakers. And most times, mother will know all these things or daddy will know all this, but the house help, who's most crucial and spends perhaps most of the time with baby, doesn't know all this, doesn't have the information.
So it's important to train or to educate whoever has to take care of the baby on what is important, and monitoring them also to be sure that they are doing exactly what the mother wants them to do or what is the right thing for the baby. It's very important that they are educated on what needs to be done. And it's also important to have helps that are old enough to be able to actually take care of the babies themselves, because sometimes people use helps that are children themselves. So it's important to use helps that are old enough to take care of the baby also.
Okay. So you talked about diapers being very good, pampers for the baby, and they can go up to 12 hours unchanged. At what point then do you also start training this baby to go to the loo by themselves, how to use the potty?
Yes. Okay, so babies would generally let you know when they are ready. Different people have different things they use to know when the baby is ready to be changed or to be toilet trained. Some people wait for when the baby is able to say potty, or some people wait for when the baby is able to show signs that they want to go to the loo by themselves. Either they are pulling down their dress by themselves to indicate that they want to go. So I personally think it's best to wait for when the baby shows you the sign that they are ready to be toilet trained.
Or not if they're never ready? They don't show you the sign.
Generally, they get ready at about 3 years maximum. You would know that they are ready to be toilet trained.
Toilet trained, yes. Okay. And also father's role in all this. We're talking about babies' patterns of sleep, but mostly again, not just mothers to be involved. It's good for fathers as well to be seen, especially when they're around. I mean, there are situations where it's single mothers, but when there is a male figure, it's important that they're part of this process, right?
Yes, it's very important. The dad is an equal caregiver like the mom, and it's important that they are involved. And now men are much more involved than they used to be in the past. And one of the ways that parents I've seen when I go to the shop, I see fathers doing the shopping a lot. So it's showing that fathers are becoming much more involved in this.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing for the development of the baby also.
And you know what also I've noticed, when some babies are sleeping, they'll be dressed like they're going to the snow world. Ooh, they have all manner of things, and by the time the baby's waking up or even half asleep, they're sweating. So how comfortable or how should one dress the baby for sleep?
One should dress the baby the way they would dress. That's what my own pediatrician told me. He said if the baby is a person like you, so if you're putting on a second layer of clothing, the baby will need a second layer of clothing. If you're taking off the layer of clothing, then the baby will also need that. Maybe at the very early stage, they are much more protected, but as they go, they should dress almost the way the adult is being dressed.
Yeah.
So if the room makes you uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable for the baby also.
And also just even in as much as we're talking about the kind of how many layers of clothes to put on, but also how fitting they are. Sometimes if it's too tight, too loose, could also get the baby having the head go inside the t-shirt and cover up. Yeah.
You know, mothers are very protective. So sometimes when they are trying to do the best for the children, they might take it a little bit too far. So it's important that the clothing, all clothings come with the right ages. This is the right age appropriate for the baby. The clothing has to be loose fitting, not too tight to restrain the baby, because they are growing very fast. You might not notice that they have added some more inches. So they need to be free enough to allow the baby to be comfortable in them, and yet not too loose that the baby could trip on them or it could get covered in them.
Is it true that, I don't know if you know this, but that you grow when you're asleep?
Is what I've come to hear a lot, but it's very true that you grow when you sleep, because when you sleep is when, especially for a baby, is when the brain makes the connections on all the things they have learned through the day. We might not know it, but the brain makes the connections when the baby is sleeping, and that's how they learn about their world. And that's why we at Pampers are very particular about how a baby sleeps and the sleeping patterns of the baby, because good sleep ensures that the baby have a happy, healthy development, and they grow up to be stronger, healthier. And the joy of every mother is to see their baby happy and healthy,
strong and healthier. And also perhaps what would encourage and help a baby sleep better and long hours uninterrupted is also when they're awake, keeping them active so they get tired. Is that correct?
Yes. People say that is one of the things you could do, especially when you're trying to establish a sleeping pattern, is when the baby is awake, you make them active so that they're also exerting energy, so in the night they sleep better. Apart from just keeping them active, what is very important is how they sleep in the night, that they have this uninterrupted sleep, because if they are not sleeping well the next day, they wake up and they are cranky, they are tired. But in the night, if they do sleep well, thanks to a good quality diaper that absorbs all the urine and allows them to not be wet, then they'll wake up happy and healthy.
Okay. And finally, Inem, on a very light note, I don't know if you know this or perhaps have studied, do babies dream?
If adults dream, I think babies would also dream. But we can't ask them, but I think babies would dream because they go through the different levels of sleep also, just like adults do.
Okay, that was on a light note. Of course, we can, but maybe there's some research on the same somewhere. Inem Nsima, who's brand manager for Pampers, with us this morning, all about newborn sleep patterns. Thank you for taking us through that. I hope for a new mother or one who's expecting has gained something from that conversation. We appreciate you being with us in studio today. Thank you.
You're welcome.